The ABC content plan, how to consistently produce better and better content. Hey, I'm Chris Cooper. This is Business is Good. And today I'm going to tell you how to create a content plan that allows you to start publishing regularly, to start amplifying your content to get in front of more people, and eventually to produce some really high-level content like a book. We're going to actually walk through this and how I published my 6th book, Start a Gym, using this exact same plan. We're going to talk about this in 3 parts. The first is what each level means. What is A-level media? What is B-level? What is C-level? Second, how to systemize so that you can just keep producing this stuff with minimal effort, but over and over again and create lots of impact. And third, we're going to talk about a plan that I use called the Power of 10 that we teach to other business coaches too. If there's one thing that I tell people over and over that they just need to do, it's publish more. Now, artificial intelligence helps, at least if you're trying to get started. And I'll bring that up at the end of this episode too. This is Business is Good. I'm Chris Cooper. If you want to chat about this stuff with me, you can go to businessisgood.com and join our free community there. And we'll discuss topics like this, building a coaching platform, whether you're a business coach or fitness coach, some kind of other coach, you can jump in there and this conversation is going to be super valuable to you. So let's start off with what is A-level content, B-level content, and C-level content. A-level content are the big publications that you make. So we're talking about books that you publish. We're talking about short form videos that are full length movies. And then we're talking about audiobooks. Okay. Things that you might publish about once every 2 years or so that establish your authority and credibility because nobody else in your niche is doing this stuff. B-level content is the stuff that you publish on a kind of a weekly or a daily basis. So this is your blog, your YouTube channel, or your podcast, just like this one. C-level content is your social media. These are your amplifiers, and you're probably publishing on multiple platforms every single day, probably about 3 times. Now, how do these all work together? Well, what you're going to do, first of all, is we're going to start with B-level content, okay? We're not going to start with A-level. You're not going to write a book right out of the gate. Instead, what you're going to do is you start with your B-level content. So you're going to start by producing YouTube or a podcast or blogs, one of those 3, okay? Then you're going to chop it up and create a ton of C-level content out of your B-level. B-level is basically where you establish your knowledge for people who want to take that deep dive and go deep on a certain topic with you, okay? Like this one, for example. So this video will be 10 to 15 minutes long, and it'll get chopped up into short reels and spread across C-level content, which is social media. B-level content, again, is YouTube, it's podcast, or it's blog, one of those 3. Then what you're going to do is for each one of those things that you do, you're going to create more C-level content. So for example, if you start with a YouTube video like this one, you can actually produce a podcast out of that too. You can peel off the audio and the podcast will be identical to the video. If you're listening to this podcast, you can go actually watch the video for this at YouTube. Just look for Business is Good and you'll see the corresponding video. So while I've shot this in video, it's also going to be produced on the podcast for people who prefer just to consume their content while they're driving, mowing the lawn, walking, whatever. From there, you can chop up the video into reels for Instagram or TikTok if you want to, especially if you're doing vertical video. You can also take the transcription from the podcast and chop that up and make blog posts out of it. So if you start with video, you can get a lot of B-level content. You can take the audio from the video and make a podcast, and you can take the transcript from the audio and make a blog. From there, it all trickles down. So you take short form video and you make reels. You take short form audio and you make clips. You take short form blog posts and you make Facebook posts or Instagram posts or whatever. I strongly recommend that you hire somebody to edit your stuff for you at each level. When you're just starting out, it's okay. Volume is more important than anything else. Just publish. But at this level, you really want to have a professional looking product, at least with your B-level content. Again, that's your YouTube, that's your podcast, and that's your blog. And so I would suggest getting a video editor, a podcast producer, or a written editor. I have all 3 to make sure that your product actually looks good and is produced well. It doesn't mean you need $1 billion TV studio. I'm in a small room right now. I've got lights up here, lights behind me, good quality mics everywhere. But you can start off with anything. You can start off with your iPhone and still produce good B-level content. Okay. When you move to C-level, which is people taking your B-level content, chopping it up and sharing it on your amplifiers, that's where you might want to automate the process as much as possible by getting an assistant. This is a place where a VA can actually help because they can take the raw product, chop it up, add subtitles, add some fades and some video effects, and publish it straight on your platforms for you. That's the kind of stuff that takes a lot of time, but it doesn't take like a high skill level to actually do. Okay. For me, people who are more graphically minded can do a way better job, so they're going to do all the C-level media for me. Now let's talk about where the A-level media comes from. This is the stuff like a book that you publish maybe once a year, once every 2 years, but it really defines you as an authority in your niche. We use a strategy called the power of 10. So here's what you do. You find 10 topics that are really relevant to your audience. And then you write 10 blog posts or shoot 10 YouTube videos or record 10 podcasts to cover those 10 topics. After you've done that for all 10, you go back and you say, okay, which of these 10 really stuck with people? Like which one got me the most feedback, shares, likes, comments, questions? And after you look at those 10 pieces of content, you might find 2 or 3 that really resonated with your audience. Great. So now you go back to those original 10 topics and you record again. So you might do a different video on the same topic. I'll give you an example in a moment. You might do a different podcast on the same topic and you come at the problem from a different angle. And again, you look for feedback. And after you've done this about 10 times, what you've got are a list of 10 pieces of content, one across each topic, that really stuck with your audience, that they really resonated with. Then you take those 10 pieces of content that your audience loved and you put that into a book, or you put that into an audiobook, or you put that into like a feature length 1 hour long movie or a webinar even. I'll give you an example. So first off, when I wrote my first book, this is it, Two Brain Business. This is actually, it's on the shelf behind me. I've got the original cover. What I did was I had been running a blog for about 3.5 years. Most of my posts were no good, but there were about 20 posts that had generated a lot of discussion. And so I took those 20 posts, I put those into a book. I called it my greatest hits album, self-published the book, and bam, shared the book. It actually sold 32,000 copies over time. It was the first gym business book really in the niche, and it became very popular. And it was just kind of like my greatest hits album. I went back to that formula later for my most recent gym book, Start a Gym. So over the last few years, we've published different articles that gym owners would need when they're starting out, like how to write a business plan, but also how to find a location and what equipment should you buy at startup, and like how to bootstrap your startup and should you take a partner, that kind of thing. And we've been publishing these articles in different formats. So while we would have one article on are partnerships any good, we might come at it from a different angle on a podcast, like should you have a partner, or even a blog, like how to get out of a bad partnership. And we would see which one of these really resonated with our audience. And they would tell us because they would respond to the emails, or they would comment on the YouTube videos, or they would ask questions on the Facebook posts. And once we had 10 of those that we knew people really liked, those became the 10 chapters in Start a Gym. And we call this the power of 10. Often, if you've got 100 pieces of content, you can find 10 that really stick with people. And if you want to really refine that, publish over and over on those same 10 topics until you find the one that gets the best response from your audience. That should be what creates a really good book. One thing that I'm really proud of with our books is most business books, they start off with a good idea and you get a lot out of the first and second chapter. And then after that, it's all examples or rhetoric, right? Like they're trying to fill the 250 pages. We don't do that. I want every single page in all the books that we publish to be super valuable. And the power of 10 lets us do that because it lets the audience tell us what should go in the book, right? They're basically like voting when they comment or respond to an email. That's the power of 10. That should give you about 10 chapters. So this stuff is all important. If you want to be an authority in your niche, you have to publish content, whether you're doing it daily with blog, YouTube, or podcast, several times a day with your amplifiers, the social media platforms that should pull people back to your blog or your YouTube channel or your podcast, or you're building something really big and you're starting with a book and you're going to do it like the easier way with the power of 10, you need to be publishing. Every company now is a media company. You have to publish. This is the thing that I've probably said the most often over the last 10 years, but it's the hardest thing for people to act on, and so very few people do. That means that you've got a tremendous advantage if you can publish continuously. We're at this kind of really cool nexus in the world right now where quantity of content is still more important than quality. So it's okay to start off with bad stuff and get better over time if you use these strategies and if you use the power of 10. Okay? You'll bury the bad stuff over time and your content should keep getting better because you'll rely on feedback to constantly audit, constantly upgrade, learn what your audience wants, learn how to publish better. As you make more money, you'll hire editors and producers to make your content look better, but you have to start. And start with this. If you only take one thing away from this show, I want you to do this. Every day, publish something before you do anything else in your day. It could be a blog post, it could be a short video, a handheld. It could be a short podcast. It could be a voice memo to your team, whatever. Make it a rule to publish something before you do anything else because that will grow your business. I'm Chris Cooper. This is Business is Good. And if you want to talk about this or see some examples of stuff that we publish, just go to businessisgood.com, click through to the members free Facebook group, and you'll see that we post stuff in there. You can also just add me as a friend on Facebook, and you'll see we publish about 13 pieces of content a week at my mentorship practice, Two Brain Business. Hope it helps. Hope business is good. Keep going.